Every evening after work, I followed the same route home, a stretch of quiet suburban roads lined with trees that whispered with the autumn wind. It was a routine I'd embraced for its reliability, a small comfort after long days at the office. But one chilly October evening, something felt profoundly off. As I merged onto my usual highway, I glanced at my rearview mirror and saw it. A dark, sleek sedan, almost ghost-like in its silent pursuit. It maintained an exact distance behind me, never speeding up or falling too far back, as though it were matching my every move. At first, I rationalized it as a mere coincidence, a fellow commuter with a similar schedule, perhaps even a driver who happened to be in a hurry. But as the days passed, the same car appeared every evening, following me through each turn and intersection. At red lights, it would pull up close enough for me to catch a glimpse of its dim headlights and shadowy contours, only to disappear once I took my next turn. The familiarity of my drive turned into a daily trial of mounting anxiety. I tried changing my route that first week, opting for side streets and unfamiliar turns in the hope that I might lose the mysterious follower. No matter where I went, however, the sedan would appear. I began to feel the weight of eyes constantly on my back, a sensation that gnawed at my peace of mind. My hands would grip the steering wheel too tightly, and every unexpected noise or glance in a mirror sent a spike of terror through me. One evening, determined to confront the mounting paranoia, I parked in a bustling shopping center parking lot and sat there with my engine idling. I set up my phone to record the view from the dashboard, hoping to capture undeniable evidence of my tale. As I pulled back onto the main road, the sedan emerged again, its presence stark against the setting sun. I watched the screen repeatedly, straining to pick up any clues. A partial license plate, a unique bumper detail, but all that came through was a silhouette, a moving shadow that offered nothing but more questions. The persistent presence of that car began to infiltrate every corner of my life. I found myself checking my mirrors obsessively, scanning every car on the road with a mix of dread and suspicion. Even my evenings at home were disrupted by the uneasy thought that the car might be parked nearby, watching. It wasn't long before I began receiving a creeping sense of violation, as if someone had taken an intimate interest in every detail of my routine. Late one night, I arrived home to find the sedan parked directly across the street, its engine dark and windows opaque. I slowed as I drove by, heart pounding so fiercely I could barely hear the hum of my tires on the pavement. For a fleeting moment, I considered calling a friend or even the police, but my pulse and a nagging sense of disbelief held me back. I forced myself to drive on. The image of that silent car burned into my mind. The turning point came on a particularly grim night when I returned home after a stressful day. I pulled into my driveway and there it was, parked right beside my house, as if it had been waiting just for me. I sat there in a frozen daze, staring at the car, trying to convince myself it was a coincidence. That's when my phone buzzed. The text message was as brief as it was chilling. "I know you." The words hit me like a sledgehammer, and suddenly, every rational explanation for the car's persistence seemed to crumble away into a landscape of terror and uncertainty. I turned to my best friend Rebecca, a security consultant with a steady demeanor and a sharp mind for unusual situations. Over coffee the next morning, I recounted every detail: the relentless following, the unerring distance maintained by the car, the eerie text message that shattered any semblance of normalcy. Rebecca's eyes narrowed with concern. "It sounds like you're being stalked," she said quietly. "You need to file a report and get some surveillance on your home." Though reluctant to believe I was the target of something so sinister, I knew deep down that I couldn't continue living under such constant fear. The following day, I visited the local police station and filed a detailed report. The officer on duty reassured me that they would check nearby traffic cameras and look into any similar incidents in the area. Yet even with that promise, the uncertainty and dread continued to grow. My daily commute, once a simple transition between work and home, had morphed into a battleground of anxiety and mistrust. For weeks, the car haunted my every move, I began altering my schedule to avoid predictable patterns, taking longer, circuitous routes home, and even switching to public transportation when possible. Despite these precautions, the mysterious sedan adapted effortlessly. It seemed to know the city's labyrinthine roads better than I did. Occasionally, I'd catch it parked a block away, as if waiting patiently for the moment to resume its silent vigil. The realization that someone was orchestrating this relentless surveillance left me feeling exposed and utterly alone. One evening, my curiosity overcame my fear. I returned to the shopping center parking lot where I had first captured the car on video. Hidden behind a row of parked vehicles, I waited with my heart pounding in my chest, determined to get a closer look. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours until I finally saw it approach. The sedan pulled slowly to a stop just a few feet from where I was concealed. Its headlights dimmed, as if in cautious acknowledgement of my presence. The door on the passenger side creaked open, and for a brief, excruciating moment, I saw the faint outline of a face. A gaunt, tired face, with eyes that flickered between fear and determination. Before I could call out, the window was slammed shut, and the car's engine purred back to life, carrying it away into the night, leaving me with 1,000 unanswered questions. Desperation mingled with terror, and I resolved to let Rebecca know immediately. Together, we reviewed the footage I had managed to capture, hoping to extract a clue, a distinguishing feature or a glimpse of a name on a license plate. The images were frustratingly blurry, yet they confirmed one undeniable fact. I was not imagining the car. With Rebecca's insistence, we decided to inform the police again, this time providing the video as evidence. The authorities promised to escalate the investigation, but the mystery deepened as no clear leads emerged. Then, one fateful night, after an exhausting day at work, I returned home only to find that the sedan was not lurking in the shadows as before, but was actually parked in my driveway. The car sat ominously under the dim glow of my porch light. My hands trembled as I reached for my keys, unsure whether to run or confront the situation head-on. Before I could make a decision, my phone vibrated. A text message, stark and simple. "I know you." The repetition of that message was a confirmation that whatever had begun as an inexplicable occurrence had now escalated into something far more personal and dangerous. Fear contorted into a mix of dread and determination. I couldn't let this mystery continue to consume my life. In the days that followed, I fortified my home with additional cameras and even considered moving, but each measure felt like a temporary reprieve from an unseen threat. Sleep became a scarce commodity, with nightmares filled with the dark sedan and the cold, unblinking eyes of its driver. Then, one brisk evening, as I sat on my porch trying to reclaim a semblance of normality, I heard the low rumble of an engine approaching. My pulse quickened as I peered into the twilight. There, at the edge of the fading light, was the same dark sedan. This time, however, it slowly rolled to a stop directly in front of my driveway. For a long, suspended moment, I watched as the car's windows remained dark and inscrutable, my breath caught in my throat when the driver finally stepped out. The figure that emerged was unremarkable at first, a man wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap, his movements deliberate and calm. Yet in that moment, every detail of his presence carried an unsettling weight. He walked up to my door without knocking, pausing a few feet away. I mustered every ounce of courage and opened the door just a crack, enough to speak. "Who are you? What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked at me steadily, and after a tense silence, his voice broke the stillness. "I'm sorry for scaring you," he said quietly. "I've been trying to protect you." For a split second, I was too stunned to respond. "Protect me?" I repeated, my mind reeling. "From what?" The man's expression softened as he explained that he had been watching over me, not as a threat, but as a guardian. He confessed that he had noticed unusual activity linked to someone from my past, a figure I had long since forgotten but who had recently resurfaced with dangerous intentions. According to him, this mysterious individual was orchestrating a network of minor crimes in the neighborhood, targeting unsuspecting victims like me. He had taken it upon himself to follow me, hoping to gather enough evidence to alert the authorities before I became his next target. Relief mingled with disbelief as I listened. The idea that the relentless car, the unnerving texts, and the feeling of being followed were not random but part of a larger protective scheme was almost too surreal to accept. Yet, the earnest determination in his eyes, coupled with the mounting evidence of his silent vigilance, convinced me that I was not alone after all. Over the ensuing weeks, the two of us forged an uneasy alliance. Under his guidance, I began to piece together a pattern that linked my inexplicable stalker to a small-time criminal network involved in identity theft and harassment. With his discreet surveillance and my willingness to share details of my routine, we built a dossier that eventually led the police to an individual who had long lurked in the background of our community, a man who, under the guise of a friendly neighbor, had been monitoring and exploiting unsuspecting residents. When the police finally apprehended the suspect, the full extent of his malicious schemes came to light. It turned out that I was not the only one targeted. Several neighbors had experienced subtle intrusions into their daily lives, never realizing the danger until it was almost too late. The apprehension of the man sent shockwaves through our quiet neighborhood, forcing everyone to confront the fact that sometimes danger hides in plain sight. In the aftermath, while the threat was neutralized, the experience left an indelible mark on my life. I became hyper-aware of every shadow, every car that passed by, and every whisper of wind outside my window. Yet, with time, I also learned to appreciate the unexpected kindness of a stranger who had risked everything to protect me. The persistent shadow that once filled my days with terror had, in a strange twist of fate, led to the unmasking of a far greater danger and a newfound understanding of the lengths people will go to care for one another. Now, as I sit in the calm of a late evening on my porch, the memory of that dark sedan still lingers, a reminder that not all shadows are harbingers of doom. Some may carry the weight of secrets, but in the end, even the most persistent and terrifying mysteries can lead to unexpected salvation.